One of the many skills I have learned is how to become comfortable with the uncomfortable in order to make a positive change in this world. But today, we're just going to start with North Carolina. Being comfortable with the uncomfortable can mean many different things for different people. However, for me, it means standing here, right here in this moment, fighting against bills that can truly challenge the legitimacy of election in the great state of North Carolina. Senate Bills 747 and 749 pose challenges for voters of all ages in our state. However, at this moment, I'm going to focus on the negative implications for youth voters. The attacks on voting by mail are direct attacks on our college students, disabled, elderly, and rural area voters. College students like myself, who live hours away from their registered voting place, rely on being able to cast an absentee ballot if they aren't able to vote early. Changing the absentee ballot grace period from 72 hours after Election Day to 5:30 on Election Day can make it very difficult for students to be able to vote. In addition to changing the timeline of when ballots are due, Bill 747 also opposes that the State Board of Elections administer a 10-county signature verification software pilot program, making North Carolina the only state in the nation to require 2 witness signatures for absentee ballots. This is extremely problematic because studies show that younger voters are 4 times more likely to have their absentee ballots rejected than older voters. In addition to that the signature software program that is being introduced is primarily trained to process English signatures, making non-native speakers more likely to have their ballots rejected. This is simply unfair and genuinely challenges our democracy. In closing, student and youth voters deserve the right to cast their ballot freely without any added barriers that's included in Bill 747 and Bill 749. We urge you to oppose limitations on access to the ballot and vote no on Senate Bills 747 and 749. Thank you. Next, we will have Ben Mill from UNC Chapel Hill.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kennedy. My name is Ben Neal. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm currently a student at UNC Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels. In the state, its same-day registration policies are already abnormally restrictive by only allowing same-day registration during early voting. The passage of SB 747 would make North Carolina singular in its restrictive policies. For young voters, same-day registration is vital to voter participation, as students represented 30% of all same-day registered voters in 2022. Under SB 747, same-day registered voters would now be forced to vote with a provisional ballot. Notably, in 2022, only 40% of provisional ballots cast were counted, making the prospect of same-day registration provisional ballots deeply threatening to youth voters. Moreover, students at UNC Pembroke, Shaw, and NC Central were disproportionately likely to have their voter cards returned to them, illustrating that the trend of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color facing the brunt of restrictive voter policies will only grow under SB 747. But the de-evolution of same-day registration will not just make it harder for myself and other young people to vote. It will also make it harder for you to vote, your mom to vote, your nephew, male carrier, neighbor. It will make it harder for everyone to vote. This is because distributing and processing provisional ballots takes large amounts of time for election officials, which will make wait times at voting sites longer for all voters. Not to mention, if early voting sites reduce to 1 site per county, these times will only get longer, hindering the democratic process. These changes to same-day registration attempt to solve a problem that simply does not exist. Instead, it adds further barriers to voting, subverting democracy, and further dividing the interests of North Carolinians from those that represent them. All in all, the changes to same-day registration in SB 747 will systematically deter residents in our state from voting, with particular impact on young voters and voters of color. This deterrence will only be further compounded by decreased access to early voting, which my fellow Tar Heel, Evan Andrews, will now discuss in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Ben. Good morning, y'all. My name is Evan Andrews from South North Carolina. I'm a rising junior at UNC Chapel Hill. Go Heels. I love it. Yes, I love it here. majoring in political science and peace and war defense. Today, I'm going to speak to you about the impact of early voting voters and how it impacts all activities in North Carolina. So first thing I want to ask, do you enjoy headaches? Do you enjoy that splitting pain in your forehead that you get after you wake up and you just really been not getting enough sleep in your tired? Do you enjoy that? No. You probably don't enjoy voting same day or voting in the same place with a million other people in the state. No one enjoys that. But that can soon be our reality in North Carolina if Senate Bill 749 becomes law. One of the major changes of Senate Bill 749 is a change in the County Board of Election members, 5 members to 4 members. Now, this change basically very small, benign, 5-4. What's the major difference? That can really impact you is that I heard from voting in the state this early voting. And if a decision comes to deadlock in the County Board of Election, for example, 2 members say they want early voting here, members say they want early voting there. They can't come to a decision. What you have is a deadlock. In that deadlock scenario, one early voting spot for the entire county. Wake, Forsyth, Guilford, several other counties around the state will be forced to only have one election site for early voting in their entire counties for their pretty large populations. Additionally, I want to highlight that early voting is also the most popular voting form amongst young voters in the state. 42% of North Carolinians aged 18 to 25 vote early. I vote early. Several of my fellow college students vote early. We go home before break, put our early vote in, and come back. Because often it's very difficult to come from your college to your hometown on a Tuesday in November. It's very practical. All in all, what I really am here today to say is we should keep early voting as it is. We need to value the importance of early voting. Be easy. It's there to be. It's for your convenience. What makes it for your convenience more intentional than before? That's why I kindly ask you to reflect on Senate Bill 749. Read it in its depth. Look at the small changes because they have big impacts. Speaking next with members of our coalition from El Pueblo, Daisy will speak about how this bill impacts Latino voters and young voters as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daisy Martinez, and I'm a rising junior at Raleigh Zone, NC State University. I'm here to talk about Senate Bill 747, also known as Elections Law Change. While the title makes it sound harmless, it is crucial to recognize that the impact of this bill extends far beyond the mechanics of voting and threatens the very essence of our democracy and poses a direct threat to many communities in our state. Let me begin by highlighting one of the most troubling aspects of this bill: the elimination of the 3-day grace period for mail-in ballots. According to Tufts University's nonpartisan independent research organization, 45% of young voters reported that they voted by mail or absentee ballot drop-off in the 2020 election. This is more than double the percentage of youth who reported using these methods in 2016. As we approach the 2024 election, the number of college students who will need to rely on voting by mail is projected to reach unprecedented levels. It is no secret that progressive voices are amplified on university and college campuses, and the GOP is well aware of this fact. By targeting accessibility of mail-in voting, this bill seeks to suppress the voices and votes of college students. Moreover, SB 747 introduces extreme and unethical list maintenance procedures that relate to jury duty disqualification. This bill requires elections boards to give anyone detailed information about people who avoid serving on a jury. While it is more than reasonable for the State Board of Elections to use this information to remove non-citizens from the voting rolls, it is crucial to acknowledge the dangers and consequences of allowing what the Charlotte Observer called self-appointed patriot protectors to exploit court records. This provision opens the doors for individuals to target others based on the mere possibility of their undocumented status, which frankly is no one's business beside the State Board of Elections. Correspondingly, the State Board of Elections already has a complex process which it audits for non-citizens with the understanding of the complexities of immigration law and people's evolving citizenship status. Instead of safeguarding voter integrity, this bill becomes a tool to harass countless legal immigrants, naturalized citizens of color, and ethnic minorities. If SB 747 becomes law, we can expect an increase in this harassment, leading to fear and decreased minority voter turnout. As a result, ethnic minorities will face lower in-person voter turnout, while the elimination of the grace period for mail-in ballots will limit a significant number of college students' most effective and efficient means of voting, often their only means of voting. Republican politicians are actively seeking to suppress progressive and minority voices. aiming to restrict our beliefs and values. Regardless of how this bill progresses, we will not allow them to succeed. I implore every politician, regardless of party affiliation, to vote against SB 747 and SB 749. Upon closer examination, it becomes evident that this bill is rooted in xenophobia, ageism, and exclusionary practices, traits that run counter to our constitutional rights and the principles that define our American freedoms. We must remember that the importance of our democratic process lies in the diversity of voices and perspectives it represents. Our democracy thrives when all citizens are encouraged to participate regardless of age, ethnicity, or political inclination. Old, white, and conservative votes are not the only votes that matter and will be heard, GOP. We must stand united and use our collective power to fight against this voter suppression bill, which is falsely marketed as an effort to safeguard integrity. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Armana Griffin. You good? I'm an organizing intern. I'm from New Bern, North Carolina. I went to the community college there, and I'm transferring to UNC Charlotte this fall. The aspect of these bills that I wanted to talk about was it's a blatant power grab by the legislature to get more personal power for legislators and more of a partisan advantage for whatever parties they represent, and more of an ability to personally control how our elections work on a structural and administrative level. So we've seen attempts like this before, as has been described by all the awesome speakers before me, to change, say, the number of people on a board to an even number to increase partisan gridlock, or to require that the members be representatives of the major parties to apply them in the first place. Language to give legislators more of the authority to call for redos or throw out votes or make fundamental changes to how our elections are administered without oversight. Obviously, this causes some fundamental structural functional issues with our elections. It's not made in good faith. But the part of it that I keep coming back to is North Carolina is a purple state. North Carolina is an increasingly unaffiliated state. And making structural changes to disenfranchise anyone not affiliated with specific legislators or parties that happen to be in power at the time directly disenfranchises huge sections of North Carolina's people. In my time as an intern, in my 2 years since starting working as an organizer in my region, in my 22 years being a person from North Carolina, I've heard so many members of my community, so many voters, so many people and alienated they feel by a sense that their legislators aren't working to represent them, that their system isn't meant to give their vote the weight that it deserves, a sense that their voice doesn't matter and their representatives aren't representing them, they're representing parties, or since their parties aren't working for them, they're working for themselves. And a lot of that frustration is very valid with these continual attacks on our democratic structures. We cannot have safe, fair, or even functional elections with unchecked partisan advantage or a legislature that gets to pick its voters. North Carolina deserves an election system built to serve its people, all of its people, not a system built to serve its parties. No, this has already passed the Senate, but it's still on the table, and I really hope to see this language amended when it goes to the House tomorrow. And to anyone who's listening who may resonate with or feel similarly frustrated with how the system is working right now, I'd just like to encourage you to keep trying to make your voice heard, to keep voting and keep engaging in your community, keep being here, please. Because your vote does matter. It is counted. your voice matters, your voice is heard, and they wouldn't have to work this hard to suppress it if it wasn't making a difference. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Morning. My name is Thomas Crowell Britton. I'm an alumni of the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Go Braves. I'm also a grad student at Duke University. As we all know, voter ID is looming over this next election. Thousands of voters will be disenfranchised. With the introduction of Senate Bills 747 and 749, there's even potential for further disenfranchisement. As we've heard from all of our speakers, it is of the utmost importance that we vote no against these bills. Thank you. Now, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Say any questions for media?
Do we have any questions from the media? Awesome. Thank you.